Right. Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great week. We are back with Roadwarden. I think it's going to be our last day. We only have 4 days left before autumn, which I have to leave by then. Well, I assume I could probably stay and probably get a game over or something if I'm not adequately set up for it. But here we are. I'm not going to finish everything. They probably won't be able to find Asterion, I'm assuming. Probably not going to be able to help with White Marshes. But we're going to wrap up what we can, see what kind of ending we get. So, we are currently at Creeks. I'm going to help him with the fallen tree. He springs up and leads you to the square. Gather folks for the wood cutting. He orders the children and waves to the adults to gain their attention. He looks at you with a smile. We have sharp axes, full stomachs, spare wheels, and you can leave your mount at a creek. Nothing like a day of grazing, napping, and shitting, eh? Without waiting for your response, he addresses the approaching souls. None of them are older than 30. I approach Haas and scratch its neck. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. After a few minutes, the crowd gathers next to the bridge, organizing their supply carts and wagons that are held only by ropes, joints, and leather straps. You notice that one of them carries a pile of a few bulky sacks, so you ask Shoshi with a massive axe about their contents. Just food, friend. She's looking at you with excitement, moving her hips to an inaudible melody. What's on wheels, light as a feather, no need to hunt in the woods. To illustrate her point, she throws her tool into the cart next to her. Just in case I keep my axe in my belt. It doesn't take long for the sounds of wheels and boots to cut through the songs of birds and insects. Your loud journey is accompanied not just by the sounds of trampled and kicked rocks, but also the conversations of the woodcutters, who are spread around without many worries. You cross the thin gorge where Ephron the hunter is waiting on the side of the road. He stands still, looking around like a gate guard from the city. But once you get closer, he joins you with an excited look and light steps, shaking the wolf's head. Don't worry, friend. You may be here to protect us, but my destiny is to keep you breathing to the very end. Good. He smiles, looks at the humble caravan behind him, and allows you to keep to your own thoughts. You move past the tavern and head south, where you encounter Ilan and Svi, the foragers. They move through the meadows with long sticks in hand and baskets on their backs, seeking food in the meadows while also scaring away any potential snakes. Once they notice your expedition, they run up to the road, where the larger man asks the others about their health and days. After a few minutes, they reach you and Ephron. You look both like a flock of vagabonds and a squad of guards, with all these axes and spears, says Ilan. Weird to see you all in one place, without the walls to hide you, crude as they are. How's today's hunt going? Ilan, careful as usual, reaches for his throwing club and makes a slow throw-like gesture. His polished and lacquered weapon shines in the sun. I hit a blue grouse. It didn't have a chance. Svi scoffs, aye, on the third try, but his companion ignores it. And we have a few snake eggs. A good dinner awaits us. After that, they mostly speak with Ephron about the mouflon he recently delivered to them, then turn back before you to get to the stone statue, wishing you a safe journey. It's nice to see that people are relaxed. I continue to chit-chat with the hunter. The farther away you get from the foraging ground, the more quiet the tribesfolk grow. The hours of wayfaring are getting to your legs, and the atmosphere grows tense as some of your weaker companions are asking to be pulled on the carts for at least a few minutes. Ephron looks behind, then at you. You ever sing in Havlavan during work? His words are so loud you have no doubt that the rest of the group also heard them. We still remember the tunes from before the war. The city folk find strength when they hear tales of the 10 cities. It will be easier to show us than describe it. You recognize Shoshi's voice. Having little breath to spare, you can't be sure your voice reaches the last row of the expedition, but you do your best to portray the Emperor Adir and the fresh pork and bread he brought to the tribes. It balances between solemnity and playfulness, and portrays a realm that has its worst days behind it. Once you're done, the tribesfolk don't say much until a woman with a big axe gets to your row and pats your back, then starts her own song that turns out to have an almost identical tune, yet the lyrics have almost nothing in common. It's now a tale that indeed includes pork and bread, but they are just two of many foods that are now referencing either shell parts or sexual acts. She keeps smiling throughout the entire tune and rests her hand on your shoulder. Some of the other wayfarers either laugh or sing along, and you hear two people clapping to the rhythm. For a bit, we move forward with our arms around each other's backs. We can eat here, declares the hunter as you approach the watchtower, and asks the people behind him to spread the news. The carts and travelers gather in the middle of the crossroads, forming a defensive circle, while some of the folks unpack food rations. Before you sit down on the grass, Ephron gestures for you to join him. Help me, aye? The two of you approach a wagon covered with a rawhide. After the hunter pushes it aside, you instantly realize what the man plans to do. It's not much, but enough for the winter. Watch out for splinters. A few breaths later, you lean the new door against the wall, then start removing the old pieces of wood, throwing them away. I'm surprised the carpenter built it so quickly. He didn't. The hunter points at the marks left by a spilt beverage. It used to be a table. We have no way of making a lock, but maybe bears won't learn how to turn a knob. Let's put the old wood back on the cart. Elo will play with it for a bit. Sure. Some of the tribesfolk wander a bit farther away, searching for the tall grasses for food. But if their habits are stronger than fear, but after the hunter orders them to regroup, they stay disciplined. After a short break, the expedition starts to restore its previous shape, while you and the hunter leave them behind, scouting ahead. The evergrown path twists between the hills and bushes. This route has issues much larger than a fallen tree. Your companion's voice is tired and quiet. 2, maybe 3 more years, and it will be safer to block it completely. Both of you reach for your blades when a sudden cry comes from down the road. It resembles an ape, a young troll, or a human tormented by visions. It lasts for a few breaths and ends as abruptly as it started, but isn't followed by any attack or even footsteps. Stay here. I crawl my way up a hill and observe the area through the shrubs. You push away the leaves and once again hear the cry. It comes from one of the goblins gathered at the side of the road, none of which looks in your direction. Their thick furs and shades of brown and black make you realize that you've encountered the very same pack in this area before. Most of them stand still and in silence, either on all fours or using their crude sticks and clubs to remain upright. 2, however, are hitting the ground with their fists and shaking the empty shell of yet another goblin, an elder covered with gray fur, whose upper half is leaning against a tree, while the bottom half is a few feet away in a puddle of blood. The guts spilling out of its stomach don't suggest a promising diagnosis. You get back to Ephron, who's too focused on his cudgel to adjust the tilted wolf's head. So? Goblins, more than a dozen. They're mourning their dead leader. So it's been whaling? I didn't know they cared. I mean, they get caught by beasts as often as we do. He then frowns, as if his words make him unsure. But after he shakes his head and adjusts his hat, his confident self returns. Well, there's more of them among the trees, keeping watch. Let's gather a fair group of fighters and strike them first. Ooh, okay. What? There's no need to hurt them. They'll flee from our loud wheels in large numbers. And why would you care? His whisper gets louder and you catch a hint of disgust. The more of these vile creatures we take down, the more merciful the woods become for us. Leaving blood and corpses will teach predators that there's free food to pick here. He observes you for a bit, then hides his cudgel. Good call. Let's let the others have weapons at hand, and to make as much noise as they can. Once you reach the rest of the expedition, the instructions are clear and simple, though a few voices argue it would be better to fight. Ephron mentions your conversation and says that we pay the Roadwarden for guiding us, so we won't ignore direct instructions. You make sure to be louder than you need, adding the occasional shout and the sounds of wooden handles hitting the wagons and the noise of boots and wheels. When you reach the bloody spot, you only find the legs and loins of the Grey Goblin. While one of the woodcutters mentions it's too bad there will be no goblin tusks for necklaces, he's quickly told to use his wit. Roadwarden says that blood lures beasts, says a forager. It's better for us this way. Hearing the following, aye, makes you confident in your judgment. The hunter seems grumpy. Don't worry, Ephron. You have many journeys ahead of you. That's not too bad, says Shoshi as you reach the fallen tree. It's thin. We can surround it. The workers divide the tools and use the carts and wagons to form a barricade, explaining that they'll move them once again when it comes to loading timber on them. You prepare your own belongings when you notice that a tribe awaits your command. You can start whenever you're ready. I'll keep an eye on our surroundings. The broken wagon is the first task the workers take care of. The few dozen souls that arrived here would be enough to simply push the tree to one side, and what would be an exhausting task for lesser numbers will take them little time. Use the crags to observe the area, moving around without haste. The distracting noises of your group scare away many creatures. The eyes that observe you are mostly spread among tree crowns and the highest points of the hills. You spot a few ibexes, monkeys, and many birds, but no cats, runners, dragonlings, or wolves. I miss sitting in a saddle. The saws and axes split the tree in a few spots at once, while the less experienced members of the group trim the branches and carry loads of wood, until they're asked to replace the exhausted woodcutters. Then the work slows down, but never stops, and while the constant noise finally lures the presence of a small dragon that's walking on 4 legs, each one as large as a human, seeing your large group makes it turn back, even though you would most likely be unable to pierce its skin. After another few hours, no one has enough fortitude to start another conversation. Once the carts and wagons are ready, the crew demands a half-an-hour break. Can't really avoid it. We're not going to make it back in time. The road back is rough. The heavy blocks of wood require the dragging crew to take turns every few minutes or so, hoping that no one will be pushed to exhaustion. Crossing the bridge is the worst part. Lifting and dropping the vehicles is too dangerous for the primitive wheels, and one of them breaks, needing to be replaced on the spot. One of the foragers finally proposes heaping up soil into temporary gentle slopes, which, once again, takes a lot of time. You and Ephron sit down at the stream bank, observing the water. Let's hope we reach the tavern before nightfall, he states simply. You're so exhausted that seeking an answer takes you a bit of time. Ela asked me to put this painted plank somewhere around here. I mutter and get up. The convenient remains of a shrub help you tie the plank above the ground. After a few minutes, you step away and take a look at the new sign. I'd rather see people building new paths, not hide them. The road less wardened. Foggy and her crew welcome you at the gate, with their few tables, benches, and chairs moved outside the palisade, inviting everyone to sit down and eat, though more than half of the crew has to sit down in the wagons. 2 of the foragers refuse the meal, instead laying on the soft grass. You all get a bowl of warm stew, heavy and fat, with snake eggs placed on top of a piece of pheasant meat. The vegetables are properly seasoned and juicy, though you'd love to have an extra pinch of salt. The worst part of the road is behind you, and while people remain quiet, they eat with enthusiasm. The tavern keeper approaches you and Ephron. It may be dark, but you feel as if she's covering you with a devouring shadow. Well, loves, how's the road? Worth the effort? Alright, try to keep the conversation going. While the hunter sighs, too tired to say a word, you indulge your appetite for gossip. You describe what you've seen, and as she scratches her large chin, she seems unsure what to say. So the real gloom is behind the tower, but even before it, we'd need more work. You chit-chat until Ephron starts to wake up the napping workers with his boot. I smile at her. No time to waste, I guess. Great. Saved! A woman with a big axe crosses the gorge with laughter, and the expedition leaves the carts and wagons in front of the bridge. Seeing how dark it is, you're not surprised to learn the unloading will occur after dawn. Not like anyone's going to steal it, says one of the foragers, though everyone makes sure to take the remaining food rations. We were lucky, but let's not tempt the beast, says the hunter. The rest of the tribe welcomes your group from the open gate, and relieved laughter fills the little village. They seem surprised to learn that no one got seriously wounded. Elon and Ephron share a brief embrace, but the carpenter doesn't hesitate to mention the hunter's smell. You realize you also need a long bath. Time to collect my reward. The carpenter reaches for a lit torch and asks you to follow him. 5 dragons is a lot, but I'd pay 4 times as much for keeping everyone safe. You did a good job, friend. He opens the wooden cask and counts down the pieces of bone. Tell me, Dane, what'd you think? How's the road? You now know how a merchant may feel on it. You realize I've seen many, many roads. There's nothing unique about this one. Protect it and it'll be safer. Neglect it and it'll be lost. He gives you a long look and finally nods. His lips are pursed until they shape a sad smile. You're right. It was just one of many days in the wilderness for you. I often forget that there's a vast world outside of the peninsula. Maybe we can shape this small scrap of land with hard work. I wait patiently. Carpenter pauses for a longer while, then starts to draw an invisible map on the workbench with his fingers, muttering to himself. Yes, he says slowly. You've already done more on the road than I've expected, friend. I dare say more than any outsider in this generation. The tribe can take it from here. He reaches for something resting on a log beneath the table, then turns towards you. You already received your pay, but maybe you'd like to take a hair pelt as a gift? Foggy doesn't need it, but you'll get a dragon or 2 for it in another village. You take a look at the fine fur and roll it into a more mobile shape. Seeing how Ela observes you, you tell him to just ask. I can't figure out what pushed you to be this much of a help to us, friend. I know some of the things you've seen were just on your path, but others took a huge risk. Or a true risk. It's just what a Roadwarden ought to do. You speak as if you're from Old Pagos. He rests one hand on his stomach and reaches out to you with the other one. It may be just another day of work for you, but come here another spring, or later, you'll see a real change at the peninsula. I shake his hand. I'm sure I will. His large hand is calloused, and even the brief touch is enough to notice the cuts and chopped off skin, signs of his amateurish labor. I doubt you'll find much more to do on this route, but if I turn out to be wrong, let me know. He then sits down on the stool and looks at his tools with a big smile. Let's see, I placed the sign like you asked. He exhales and nods gently. Thanks, friend. I was thinking about it, and it may be a good opportunity for us to visit that mountain after all. There's a lot to talk about, and there will be even more in spring. Here. He hands you 2 dragon bones that he already held in the pocket of his pants. I'm glad to see you got your senses back. I'm surprised you keep finding something to do. This land really is a mess. I'll let you know if there's anything else. I'll see you later. Let's clean up in the creek. Alright, well. Before you cross the bridge, you're told to wait by Ela. There's one more thing, friend. Ever since we said farewell to our hunting friends and siblings, the tribe of Creek seas were lacking fresh blood, and then we got too cocky with these woods and roads. If you think this is a good place for you, his dramatic pause is betrayed by the shaking lips of his concealed smile, you can stay with us for however long you'd like. We already voted on it, and to be honest, you're quite popular. His laughter is so honest you can't help but feel warmth in your stomach. Well, I'd like him to elaborate. Care to elaborate? You've seen our days. There isn't much to explain. He pats his stomach. While you have all your limbs and a clear head, you'll escort your neighbors on their hunts and merchants on their trips to other villages. We hope to trade much more in the following months, you know. He adjusts his shoulder cloak and takes a deep breath. His posture is uncharacteristically relaxed. We'll keep you fed and clothed, and you'll never have a lonely day again in your life. You'll feast with us, not as a traveler, but as one of us. I can't promise you'll find a family here, but you'll have friends at your side. He gives you a humble smile. Whatever spirit you may pray toward, you'll have your space to do so. You'll witness the grand growth of your home, farms, arts, visitors. Trust us, Dane. He looks around you. You notice many more faces observing you. As we are ready to trust you. That sounds... I'd love that, friend, but I need to finish a few things first. He spreads his arms. Do so. The 10 cities may take a step back from your life, but it's not like we're hermits. Close this old chest of yours and come back. Just don't die before spring. He's standing a few feet away, not sure what to do. I smile. Oh, I don't plan to die anytime soon. We are both souls with big plans. His eyes are gentle. Goodbye, Dane. Farewell. Alright. Sleep. One dragon. Alright, we'll eat something up. Time for me to go. Travel. Alright. Let's see here. I mean, we only have a couple days. I gotta wrap this up. I do a journal. Quests. Yeah, I'm not spying for Theiss. I'm not going to be able to finish that. Oh, I'm not gonna have time for that one either. Well, we pretty much need to go to the giant, and then really all I can do, all I can accomplish, if I can even accomplish this. All right. I kneel in front of the statue and speak the words of prayer I've learned. Place the blanket beneath your knees. You bow down your head and stretch out your arms, reciting the strange sounds you've memorized. Their empty sounds mean nothing to you, but the wind is gentle, and there are no monsters to distract you. Haas grazes on the grass, and moved by your efforts, long minutes go by. Tiny stars, white, blue, orange, and yellow, emerge from the dark cloak, one after another. Some of them grow in size and intensity, while many more stay dim. After a few moments, they move no more, and you get used to the hollow darkness remaining between them. It may take me hours, but I do my best to memorize everything I can about the signs presented on the statue. You try to get used to the curved surface of the cloak and the plentitude of distracting small dots. For most of the time, you manage to stay focused. After less than an hour, you manage to spell out the positions and colors of the larger dots from memory. Then again and again, you step away convinced you've got this. I don't know what to do with that, though. Journal say something about it? Am I blind, or did that complete it? Okay. Well, I don't know what else to do with that. Yeah, and she just... I don't have anything good for her. Alright. Alright, Eudosha. Eudosha cold shell, the monster's eyes glow red. Dane, come inside. I wouldn't mind a bit of company. Eudosha is sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty wooden bowls, and stares at a cold piece of roasted meat on a wooden plate. Yeah, I don't have anything she wants. Okay, well, I can't really wrap anything up in... Well, there might be one more thing I could do. I get the fish for the elder. See if I can actually accomplish that. Shivers wake you up and you open the door slightly, letting the dense fog in. You see a few lights, most likely lanterns, and you hear a few patrolling guards. One of them shouts at you to stay inside. The harpies may descend at lone wanderers. It too shall pass. Alright. Let's see. Go to the fisher before he leaves. I was sent here by an old druid from the south. He claims that you owe him a male empress carp. What? I owe nothing to that old fool. I can have it here tomorrow if you want, but better have a coin with you. I need to ask someone to look for it with a net. Oh. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that. How's Phoebe doing? She's the same as she was yesterday and the day before that. He avoids your eyes. Don't ask me anymore, outsider. I don't want to think about the time she's going to ask me why she's broken. Well, I probably don't have time to play matchmaker either. I'm just, yeah. I think I've accomplished what I can without just not being able to leave. I am curious about... How much time do I have? Yeah. I'm curious about the rock slide. If I can use that golem fist and just punch through it. Yeah, I really don't know what I'm supposed to be able to do here. It's got to be something I obviously missed, but... Alright. On to Pelt of the North. Give my horse an edge to the inn. Let's talk to Tulia. I found a Starion. Oh. Yeah, so I can't even like say, oh yeah, he was up with people of the north. Alright, finish your adventure. Are you all packed and ready? She rests her hand on her knees and straightens up. I am if you are. You look outside. It's too late to ride to the other side of Hag Hills, but you could leave first thing in the morning. Let's introduce you to Haas. You're going to spend a lot of time together. The owners recognize you and bless the Empress Inn. Once again, your pouch is light, and you have to spend the night in the common room, chewing on the watered-down gruel. The days fade away slowly. With Tulia by your side, you can't simply outrun the autumn predators, and a few times your journey gets violent. She's a good companion, though you discuss only the most crucial events. One evening, after she had one mug of cider too many, she admitted her grudge, mentioning the debt you placed upon her. Since then, the mood has gotten even heavier. After all the fighting I did in the north, the road isn't too rough. After 2 days, you join forces with an encountered caravan. The roads get wider and harder, and you meet the first patrol of soldiers. "We're here," says the lieutenant in the last village you visit before reaching the city walls. Without explaining, she approaches a few red-haired farmers that are observing you curiously from the bench in front of their pit house. After exchanging a few words with them, she heads towards your palfrey and starts to unpack Asterian's possessions. The strangers spare you only a glance, and while their eyes remain troubled, they politely accept their inheritance. I wonder what happened to him. After taking care of some chores and meeting a few friendly faces, you leave your mount in the stables, which, as it often happens, are almost empty. In Hovleven, every street seems to be more crowded than an entire northern village, and you frown the moment you hear the busy marketplace. You may be back home, but you'll need a few days to get used to the local scents, noise, and the overall lack of green. You take your equipment to the backwood corner. It's a dangerous alley, but you know a place where a coin will keep your bundles untouched, the Boarhead Inn. You listen to the rumors, but as the minutes go by, no one approaches you or asks you for help. The trade goes fine. You hear, the city chief has a daughter now. The new ship is ready to sail. The taxes are coming. The band of undead on the road has been taken care of. I keep to myself, enjoying the calm before the storm. The noises of the drunken crowd hinder your sleep. You head downstairs and fully wake up only after you can serve the remains of the last day's supper: mutton stew, a piece of rat pie, and a mug of kefir. You listen to the Emperor's Mask, the hymn from the old times, coming from the window. Hovlevan is returning to work. When the messenger shows up, you let out a sigh. The merchants want to see you in an hour. You spend some time at a public bathhouse and prepare your somewhat clean outfit. In the streets, you blend in with the working folk. On your way, the familiar faces spare you a few nods, but as always, the city folk are too busy trying to outcompete one another, seeking dignity in the realm that belongs to the rich and the priests. I head to the guild quickly. I want to be done with this. After a few hours of exhausting examination, you lean against the wall, observing the arguing leaders. The jewelry and colorful fabrics could provide for many northern families, maybe even pay for a new stronghold. You wouldn't recognize the priests of the United Church if it wasn't for their familiar faces. "Too bad you haven't found that poor wretch," mentions one of the traders. "No one here remembers Asterian's name. Let's just assume he's not coming back. Objections? There are none." You ask for something to clear your throat. Your detailed description of the peninsula made quite an impression, and you may be asked to speak with a cartographer later, and it's clear you're familiar with quite a few northerners. You fill the gaps in your report. You discuss the recent disappearance of a trading caravan, Eudocia's golem glove, the few times you crossed the heart of the woods, the lack of access from the coast, the copper vein in the hands of the locals, the shelter by the northern road, the mine in the south. Still, it's your dealings with the tribes that will have the greatest impact on their decision. I relax and wait for them to address me. The oldest soul at the table, who started her life in the guild as a simple innkeep, smiles at you. "Where do you think we should start, Dane?" "What do you mean?" One of the artisans chips in. "We need to discuss this in detail, of course, but we can't bring guards and builders to all the villages at once. Since you know the peninsula better than anyone, where do you think would be the best starting point?" Old Pagos has a lot to offer, and the monks will secure the tribe's loyalty. After 5 days, you take part in a brief meeting in the guild's chambers. You're welcomed by a few clerks. The discussed investment will proceed further, though with great caution, you finally hear. Your services are much appreciated. You return to the street with a wooden casket, heavy with dragon bones. You could try to invest in some wares, but definitely can't stay idle at an inn. You have a mount to look after. I'll just live comfortably until spring, then start another journey. That's where the easy dragons are. The flow of merchants and supplies was slow, but steady. The decades went by, but the tribes kept their distance from the city folk, seeing in them only trading partners, but benefiting from the safer roads, restored shelters, and new inventions. The trade route following the Western Trail greatly benefited the dwellers of the Pelt of the North. After a few more years, they moved to Hovleven, living off their savings and occasional mercenary work, forming an experienced squad. The inn was sold to the city officials and remains one of the few shelters in the dangerous north. Hallersdale, torn by the conflict between Thias' guards and the Druids' calls for isolation, needed some time before they joined the new trade route. They allowed the caravans to ride through the village and exchange wares, but their lives didn't change much. Lacking in resources, the village could never be fully free of its dependence on the other tribes. More and more words of the city folk sunk into the speech of the locals, but for the next few decades, their gates were closed to any priest of the right. Steep House stood in silence, avoided by the caravans that cut a new path through the haunting clearing. It provided for a few more scavengers and gave shelter to beasts, and slowly faded away, until there were but a few broken walls surrounded by the paved square. The tribe of Old Pagos lost many lives to the plague, and even more so to the harsh winter, but the village survived, as united as ever. Thanks to the revitalized trade route and the earnings from their new copper mine built up by the Eastern Road, the locals returned to their craft, providing an essential material to the now growing security of the northern roads and settlements. Their famous statues soon reached the houses in the city. The tribe kept their savings for the darker days, but many years would pass before they felt hunger again. Tertia stayed in the village, but rejected the further responsibilities of a leader, returning the power to the elders. She spent a few years patrolling the roads, until, wounded by a were-badger, she became a combat instructor. Quintus stayed on the wall for the first few nights of autumn, but then, lured by hunger, got caught by an unusually patient treant. With the support of Havlaven, the monks almost completed the library in stone during the following century. However, their poor planning and distrust toward the city architects led to a disaster. After a violent earthquake, the mountain collapsed under its own weight, burying many souls alive. Wow, what a waste. White Marshes, facing growing pressure from the soldiers and inquisitors, buried the routes that connected it with the rest of the peninsula. Troubled yet isolated, it collapsed after Orontius' sudden death, becoming the largest fortress of the undead in the north. After years of waiting, the growing strength of one of the skeletons gave it a human-like mastery of Numa. The mage began a long campaign against the tribes and caravans, feeding on their blood until its army of shells crossed Hag Hills to the realm of shorter walls and fewer blades. The poorly guarded Foggy Lake was among the first places taken over by the wave of the undead coming from White Marshes. The fire that occurred during the break-in consumed the entire hamlet. Man, I knew I should have dealt with that first. Creeks couldn't withstand the undead wave. Of the tribesfolk who sought help in the woods, only a small group of woodcutters survived and found shelter among the fissures of Gale Rocks. The other locals soon joined the forces of the skeleton mage. The soil of Gale Rocks couldn't provide for the village's hard-working people with crops alone. Groups of fishers were forced to seek game meat and fruits, but their lack of experience made them perish among the hungry, untamed forests and hills. Like many times before, the ancient tribe dwindled in the face of struggle, but holding to its faith and stubbornness, survived long enough to see another dawn. The road leading through the heart of the forest remained abandoned, reserved for the times of great need and hardly ever maintained by the soldiers from Havlaven. Glossia kept raiding the people of White Marshes. After bothering them for years, she lost most of her companions to blades, claws, and illnesses. Ashamed of her weakness, she left her camp one spring dawn, never to return. Eudosha agreed to do some work for the city folk, earning a great amount of luxurious wares, but since every request she got was a variation of making a weapon even more lethal, the boredom of repetition started to push her to her limits. She sought joy in her own projects, sharpening her senses with snakebait, day after day until her heart stopped beating a year later. Soon her residence became occupied by the soldiers of Havlaven, who made nothing of the motionless stone sentinels. The trail leading to the tribe of the Green Mountain was reclaimed by the woods, and after a few generations, people forgot about the village's existence. Dane, the Roadwarden of the Northern Peninsula, rejected the routine of the city folk, spending their savings with little care, then taking the riskiest jobs for riders. Thanks to their impressive equipment, decent combat experience, and resolve, they spent a decade as a competent mercenary, until the weight of years and scars made them join a group of treasure-hunting adventurers. Their final trip was meant to bring to the city a whole dragon corpse. That be it. That be it. I wished I pressed more of the conversation early, because I feel like I spent the whole first third of the game just not getting anything accomplished, because I let Thice just not finish the conversation, I guess. So I didn't even, go back to Pelch of the North with any information. I might have gotten further then. I'm bummed I didn't get to finish White Marshes or fight Hysterion. Those are the major things. Obviously, things might have been different. And maybe I needed to find a Starion to help with White Marshes, but I'll have to play it again. I'm quite pleased, actually, with the care and I don't want to say variety because it's not quite the right word, but there was a lot. There's a lot of different paths to take. I mean, it was choose your own adventure with some RNG thrown in. It's not bad, and it's not like it requires a lot of animation or color. It just works. It's an interesting format, and I really appreciated it. So, I mean, I didn't really have anything else planned. I'm not going to start anything for the next 15 minutes, but I'll be back next week. I might do Tales of Iron, something a little bit more, well, action-y, but we'll see. I'll come to something, probably a Metroidvania of some sort, something like that. But anyway, I don't know if you're still around, Sorokal, but I appreciate you joining me for this journey, even if it was every once in a while. And maybe we'll check out Windy Meadow. That might be something interesting for next week as well, but we'll see. Anyway, I appreciate everyone that's joined me on this journey through Roadwarden, and I do recommend it for a slower experience. It's not action-packed. You don't need to be on your game to play it, but it's fun. It's interesting, and there's probably a whole bunch more to the story that I didn't even get to experience in my playthrough. So I'll probably end up playing it again as well. Anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday and a great weekend, and we will see you next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central.